seem like maybe what they found in Mesoamerica fits, according to Luke, better. I don't actually disagree. I really love that. I think you did such a good job, Luke, by the way. Did such a great job, by the way. I believe that we don't know enough, but I do believe the Heartland model is likely correct. So with that kind of preface, the two questions that we have are, number one, stone. The stone that I would hope to find in the model of Heartland. I would like to know more about that. And I would like to know more about like the coinage system, because I personally believe that as things became slippery in the Book of Mormon, most of that stuff has been lost. And so do you have any evidence of any of that? Is there any of that? I don't. I think there's a ton of evidence for stuff that you stood up here and said it's missing. I think there's swords and all sorts of crap that we found. So I think there's probably more that you probably could have said, but I would like to kind of point to those two things.
Okay, so really fast also, just so you know, we're setting a precedent for the people behind you. Try and keep so what's the question in one sentence? Stone?
And I don't know, the other thing. What was the other thing?
Coins.
Coins, yeah, there you go.
Okay, stone and coins in a minute or less. Rod, what do you think?
Okay, so there are 8 different locations in North America with ancient Hebrew writing on them, or Hebrew-esque things like a giant menorah with the city of Lehi area, which was called the menorah mounds. But anyway, so there's a couple different stones. One of them I think that you're probably talking about is the Newark Holy Stones. A couple things about the Newark Holy Stones. They were found in Newark, Ohio, in a dig that was originally found by David Wyrick. He was a guy that was the town surveyor. He and several men were out on one of the mounds there, just kind of in the vicinity of the Great Hopewell, the Great Octagon, the Great Circle area there in Newark, Ohio. And long story short, basically, is that they were digging in this mound. They came up with a stone, looked like a rock about this big, and when they kind of tossed it aside, and it went clunk, and they were like, wait a minute, rocks don't normally clunk. So they went over and picked it up, and they shook it, and like, it's got something inside of it. So they washed it off. They found that there was a rim around it. It was cemented shut. And they actually, that's another thing we'd love to talk about, is cement and so forth. But basically, so they popped this thing open, and inside of it with this stone. I showed you that. Well, let's see. I'm not sure if the pictures were up there. It was at the time when we were not doing that. Anyway, I could just give me a second.
You got 30 seconds.
Pull it up there. Well, okay. I'll just say. The interesting thing about that is that they pulled it out. It had writing all over it. It had what looks like a man in a long robe with a very interesting temple-looking hat on. Over the top of it is three characters that form the word Moshe, which means Moses, and on the outside edges of it is a complete rendition of the 10 Commandments in ancient Hebrew script that wasn't even known to exist at the time. It's pretty hard to fake or forge something in a script that's not known. You have to have a script to work from. If somebody asked you to write the alphabet, or write the 10 Commandments in Klingon, how would you do it?
Okay.
Right?
All right, sweet. So I got to toss to Luke really fast. Stone and coins.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about in my opening statement with the 30,000 view versus the granular approach. You have to answer the big questions first of like, where do we even have viable candidate civilizations before you get down to the specifics? And it's completely fine to have like a preference for where the Book of Mormon happened. That's not a testimony issue or anything like that. It's just in a analysis of where it took place, it's clear that on the big level and then even on the micro level, what we expect to find in the Book of Mormon actually is in Mesoamerica and not the Heartland.
You get another minute because he has 2 questions.
We asked 2 questions.
Oh, well, if you don't need it.
I'll be done. We can do the next person.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, next person. Thank you very much for your questions, my man. Thank you. Remember your phone, what your favorite hymn is, and then hit us with your best shot, brother.
All right, I'm Seth Stewart. I'm from planet Earth, Utah, like probably most of you. Favorite hymn, If You Could Hide a Kolob. So those closest to the translation of the Book of Mormon, including Joseph Smith, who gave detailed descriptions of the Book of Mormon peoples, their cities, and the animals they rode, etc., held to a hemispheric view. Importantly, statements from the current church leaders do not contradict Joseph Smith. President Nelson admonished us not to take counsel from those who do not believe, yet the primary shift away from Joseph's views on the subject have been due to secular scholarship based on the atheistic assumptions of Darwinism. So, Heartland and Meso, why not both? What are the arguments that you could each make for the hemispheric model?
Yeah, you go first, Rod.
Okay.
You got the red hat on, bro.
Okay, so as far as the hemispheric model, basically that actually did hold sway for a lot of people for a period of time in the early church, from Orson Pratt and Parley P. Pratt and so forth to a few others. But over the course of time, people have realized that if you take a look at the travel distances and time frames that are involved in the Book of Mormon, they're not talking about going 4,000, 5,000 miles from Central America to North America. So it became really contingent upon, okay, if it's a limited geography, then where is it limited to? And that's really where it came down to from a historical standpoint. Joseph Smith, there's those who talk about that they thought that Joseph Smith was talking about a hemispheric. I want to just address that really quickly, if we can. Let me pull up a couple of slides here if you can show this real quick.
Well, you got 30 seconds.
These questions cannot be answered in 30 seconds, I'm sorry.
You'll find a way, Rod. You got it, brother.
They just can't. I mean, the bottom line is you can hope for it, but the bottom line, let me
Go for it.
Let me just show you this because this is important, okay? So this is Joseph Smith Jr. General Conference address of the church. You said you wanted to go deeper? Go deeper. Okay.
Well, that was correct.
All right. So this is Monday, April 8th, 1844. He says, you know that there's been great discussion in relation to Zion, where it is and where the gathering of this dispensation is, in which I am now going to tell you. You can imagine those who were there at the time when Joseph Smith said that, I'm going to tell you about Zion. You think you're going to be all ears? Yeah. It says, the prophets have spoken and written upon it. I'll make a proclamation will cover a broader ground. The whole of America is Zion itself, from north to south, and is described by the prophets who declare that it is the Zion where the mountain of the Lord should be. It should be in the center of the land. When elders shall take up and examine the old prophecies in the Bible, they will see it. So what are the qualifiers that Joseph Smith gave about the Zion? It says the prophets have spoken and written upon it. At no point in the scriptures are there anywhere where prophets have talked about North and South America being Zion. So where have they written about this? Okay, he says the whole of America is Zion itself from north to south. Luke actually brought this up correctly. That several people, later prophets, have talked about North and South America being Zion, right? That's because Wilford Woodruff, when he heard this talk in General Conference, he wrote it down in his journal that all of North and South America is Zion. But those who actually were the scribes, they wrote it down differently. They said the whole of America is Zion itself, north and south. So what exactly does America mean? Well, in Wikipedia, the English language, it talks about the Americas as being North and South America, but when it talks about America, singular, it refers almost exclusively to the United States. Now that's Wikipedia, but it doesn't matter what Wikipedia says. What did America mean to Joseph Smith? Okay, so this is from the Evening and Morning Star, December 1832. This is going to go to answer one of Luke's questions that he had before. He says, the Book of Mormon declares that the land which is now called America, singular, is a choice land above all others, and we believe it because the Lord has said it and we've seen it. At present, the world thinks much of America because it, singular, is trying the experiment of a free government. And the people of the Lord are beginning to lift up their heads and rejoice because Jesus the Redeemer is setting up his kingdom upon this choice land above all others. So when Joseph Smith used the term America, in this case, it's pretty dang clear that he's talking about a free government. Not all of the Americas, not North, Central, and South America are trying the experiment of a free government. It's only the United States of America that is.
Okay.
I have several other comments about that, but let me just finish this up.
Okay,
This is really critical, okay? So what do you mean from north to south? Interestingly enough, Joseph Smith had just barely received Doctrine and Covenants section 87, where he talks about, behold, the southern states shall be divided against the northern states. It turns out that Joseph Smith wasn't talking about North and South America at all. He was talking about America. It's north, meaning the Union, and the south, meaning the Confederacy. That is the north and south of America that he's talking about. He's not talking about North and South America. That was misunderstood by Wilford Woodruff, and then it got passed on again and again and again by church leaders over the course of time.
Well, we can always throw the Confederacy under the bus, so yeah, rock on. And he may have said that about America,
saying.
but did he say hashtag America? That is the question. Luke, hit it.
All right, so let's start with you. You talked about the genetic fallacy, which is saying that well, they had this hemispheric model before, but then secular atheist people brought in these other ideas, and that's what made them switch their mind. So because bad people introduced it, it's a bad idea. That's a logical fallacy called the genetic fallacy, which is a fallacy where somebody equates the source of an argument to the validity of the argument. You have to address the argument itself and not the source of the argument if you actually want to disprove it. When we go to the Book of Mormon, if it's going to be a continental model, you have to, the Book of Mormon will have to have left out a lot more things than we would expect it to leave out. Like when it's talking about these cities, when it's talking about Nephi down in the south, Bountiful, Hill Cumorah up in the north, if that actually spans the entire continent, the Book of Mormon's leaving out a ton of cities and rivers and mountains and passes and wildernesses in between all of that stuff. You don't, especially in the ancient world when you don't have cars or other forms of rapid transportation, you don't have cities 300 miles away. They need to be closer. And so the Book of Mormon, the best argument for the continental model, I think, is that the Book of Mormon left out a lot of stuff. And to briefly address what Rod is saying, I'll remind us once again that the 1828 Webster's Dictionary defines America as one of the great continents, extends from 80th degree north to 54th degree south latitude. Nowhere in the 1828 dictionary does it say America equals USA. And when Joseph Smith says stuff like there's a free land here in America, he's correct. It's just that the United States occupies part of America, and then there's other parts of America that he's not talking about in those quotes that he's not referring to. And so you can harmonize it very easily.
Cool. Awesome. All right, next one, my man. So we got 3 more left, right?
2.
Oh, all right. Okay, your name, where you're from, what your favorite hymn is, and then the question.
All right. My name's Tim. I'm from Mapleton here in Utah. And my favorite hymn is one of the new ones that's been released, Gethsemane, the Children's Choir Day Conference. Awesome.
That was a cop-out, but it was a good one.
All right. So my question, I have to read a scripture really quick, and then I'll get to the question. So 2 Nephi 5:15 says, "And I did teach my people to build buildings and to work in all manner of wood and iron and copper and brass, and of steel and of gold and of silver and of precious ores, which are in great abundance." So how does the Heartland model account for the geology of the Nephites? Like I know the Carolinas have gold, the Great Lakes have iron, and copper mines that I'm aware of are in Missouri. Zinc's needed to make brass. Nephi's the one speaking in the verse, and the group isn't large enough yet and hasn't spread out across all the land. Is there any place in the Heartland model where all these metals can be found in close proximity and, as Nephi says, in great abundance?
And the answer to that is absolutely yes. In the vicinity of Chattanooga, Tennessee, was the area of the very first gold rush of this dispensation, basically. On Duck Creek, there's lots of information about that. There were gold mines up until about 1982. The last gold mine finally shut down. The area there, which is our call for the Land of Nephi area, actually has. And I've got a couple of books about the history of the Alleghenies and so forth that go clear back into the mid-1800s that talk about that they found literally mine shafts going back into some of the ore deposits there in the Chattanooga area. And they asked the Native American people who did these mine shafts. They said, we don't know, it was somebody before us. What were they mining? Every metal that is talked about in the Book of Mormon, gold, copper, silver, lead, and so forth, we have artifacts of every one of those metals. But they also talked about they were doing smelting. And we have a whole section in the Heartland about metallurgy in the Book of Mormon. In fact, I was going to bring with me a copper brick, or excuse me, it's a brick, but it's infused with copper because it was part of a copper smelting furnace in Ohio. We have artifacts, head plates and breastplates made of those things. We have, archaeologically, we've found copper bracelets that have been plated with silver. Literally plated. It wasn't just silver rolled and then smashed over the top of it. They actually found it plated. We have steel swords that have been found back in the 1800s. The steel was completely gone, but they found the top part and the lower part of a sword scabbard, and they absolutely said that there was a red stain in the ground where the steel sword used to be. But that's, in fact, it's one of the only places in the world where all these metals actually occur within about a 15 or 20 mile radius of Chattanooga, Tennessee, which also happens to be where the Lookout Mountain is located, which you can see 7 states simultaneously from the top of Lookout Mountain, if that's the place where King Noah was when he went up on the tower and saw the Lamanites coming out in the distance. And so they had several days to get their flocks and herds together. So basically, metallurgy is one of the really strong points for the heartland. It's one of the biggest downfalls of the Mesoamerica stuff because they weren't doing any metalworking, smelting. There's no evidence for any of that stuff until around 900 to 1100 AD. The Book of Mormon says they were doing this about 500 BC in the land of Nephi, which is where you were quoting from.
Okay, take that, Luke.
All right, so,
Where's your head plate?
oh, okay, head plates and breastplates. So I don't know specifically what Rod Meldrum was referring to with head plates and breastplates, but if he was referring to what he used as an example in the annotated edition of the Book of Mormon that he just put out recently, those examples were golden little car, they were the size of a car license plate, and it's gold. So if any of you want to trust your life to that protecting you, have at it. That's cool if you want. If something that big is going to be a breastplate protecting you. The helmets that he's talking about were very decorative. They had like animal designs and everything on them. Not very good for protection, and once again made out of the wrong kind of metal for that kind of purpose. Mining of iron ore by the Olmec in forms of hematite and magnetite is well documented archaeologically. And there were items made from it. And by the way, the Olmec is where we are saying that the Jaredites were decided. Not that the Jaredites were the Olmec, but that they participated in that culture.
Come on, commit to it. You're a Mesoamerican.
Clear
Commit to
archaeological, clear archaeological evidence of copper and gold and silver have not yet been found, but there are known occurrences of native gold, silver, and copper in the Olmec area. So, and once again, we have to, when we zoom in and do this zoom out thing, on the zoomed out thing, when we're looking at the forest, we don't have what we need in the heartland. When we look at it in Mesoamerica, we have it. We don't have to speculate, well, maybe the archaeologists will stop being in a cabal and this evidence will come out in the future. No, it's there. It's there now. In Mesoamerica, it's not in the heartland, and for them to make their case, as Rod has done here, you have to zoom into these very specific things and sometimes misrepresent the data that you have and downplay the data that's in Mesoamerica to make your case. And I think the approach needs to be the opposite. We need to take the 30,000 view with the data currently there, not that what we hope comes in the future, and then zoom it down after that.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much for the question, my man. Yeah, round of applause. He gets one too. Okay, we got one more, right? One more, and then Brad's got one. Okay, hit it.
All right, Lane Pitcher, and I hail from the Promised Land in the Great White North. Shout out to Brad. And favorite hymn.
The Great White North?
Great White North, Canada.
Oh, dude, that's my favorite national park. You did that. Dude, that is awesome, man.
Snowbird, man. Okay. And favorite hymn, All Creatures Are God and King, just because. So the question is, so in the Book of Mormon, we have a lot of, there's very few explicit geographic descriptions, a lot more where we have to search for understanding and try and read into the text what is there. So if the strength of a good argument is your ability to question your own suppositions, is there anywhere in your own geography that you're arguing for that you believe your side of the camp should, or at least maybe could, question your own inferences?
Okay, Luke, you haven't gone first yet. You go first on that one, bro.
Okay. I think you should always question your own inferences. That's kind of the reason why I was the one that initiated this debate. And at first I was going to do it as the moderator, someone just interested in conversation. So I think that's what you have to do. For the Mesoamerica model in particular, I think because we don't know for sure where it happened, so I think Mesoamerica proponents going forward do have to remain careful to accurately represent how much evidence they have and also accurately represent the other side, because it does nobody any good to misrepresent it. And I hope I've done a good job of that here.
I know Luke uses an Android, and also they're knockoff AirPods. Somebody that has real AirPods, give him a real AirPod and an iPhone. We're gonna have a GoFundMe. He's the green bubble that ruins the blue bubble group chat, but we still love him. We still love him. No, okay,
right,
go
that's
for
right.
it. That's true. That's true.
Okay.
We figured out what your Christmas present is, bro.
I'm more of a wanderer anyway, usually. Okay, so a couple of quick things, like just to kind of give you a couple of examples of this. So as an example, when we first started doing this information, my first idea was to just, okay, let's just get down the major locations, right? The concentrations of where we have this. And so we have like the land of first inheritance, the land of Nephi, the land of Zarahemla, the land of Bountiful, right? And then the land of Nephi area, there's this place that is just absolutely adored by the Native American people. It's called Big Spring, Missouri. And we thought, well, maybe this could be something that's kind of a throwback, because they go there for their, to do all kinds of ceremonies and so forth. And it's one of the most beautiful areas in the whole country. Basically, it's this massive river that's twice the size of the Provo River that literally bubbles up out of the ground at 38 degrees, and it's just gorgeous. And we all thought that this is probably the waters of Mormon. And for a long time, we actually would take people there on tours and so forth. And whenever I was on the tour, I was always careful to say, if this isn't the waters of Mormon, it ought to be, because it's so beautiful. But we don't know, right? In fact, the Book of Mormon doesn't say that the waters of Mormon were particularly large. They just said it was a fountain of pure water, right? And so we got arguing about that. Me and actually Jonathan, are you still here? Jonathan Neville, are you still here? Maybe he left. Anyway, so it's actually Jonathan Neville said, you know what, if the land of Nephi is around Chattanooga, Tennessee, where all the metals are located, then this is like 400 miles away. I said, well, that doesn't work. So basically we had to alter our geography to make it actually so that it would be within the time frames that are talked about in the Book of Mormon for Alma the elder to leave from Noah's, from the land of Nephi there and go do their thing. Another quick example is how many people died at the Hill Cumorah in the final battles. I'm of the belief that basically when it says 230,000 men, 23 people of 10,000 each, that's maybe not an exact count number, but it's pretty close. It's not off by thousands or hundreds of thousands. Jonathan is of the opinion that basically they're talking about the entire war. It could be either way. I read it differently than he does. So we disagree about that. But there's a lot of different things. So what is probably the most difficult part of the thing? Probably one of the most difficult parts of the Heartland research has to do actually with the apparent lack of big cities. But when you understand that they built out of wood, and wood doesn't last for very long, and you have to really look for it to find it in the archaeological record, it explains a lot why we don't find a lot of it. But you don't build millions of mounds with just a handful of hunter-gatherers.
All right, awesome. Ethan, do we have any other gotcha questions?
That was it.
That was it. We got Brad Whitbeck, right? Okay, shout out, by the way, if you guys didn't know this, you might recognize Brad Whitbeck from the Book of Mormon movies. He's freaking King Mosiah.
Yeah, King Mosiah.
You need to go back and rewatch those, because he did a very good job.
Thanks, Cardinal. What? Alrighty, okay. So I have a question for each of you. It's a different question for each, since you're answering everybody. So, Luke, let's start with you. My question, and this is kind of yes or no, really. Do you think that there is anything about the text of the Book of Mormon that suggests that the land northward needs to have a limited geography like the land southward?
King Benjamin just asked you that question, bro.
I'm just, yes or no, I'll just say no. You're asking me if the text demands that the land northward be small.
Yes.
Is that the short version of it? I'm not aware of any, but haven't done a deep study on that particular question of the geography.
Okay. So I don't know, but probably no?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Now, Rod, my question for you, I'm gonna kind of rephrase something that Luke was asking during the cross-examinations. Donald Trump has recently talked about possibly annexing Canada. Oh, please pick someone else. But in that spirit, let's continue forward in history. We fast forward to the year 2033. The United States of America now includes Canada and Mexico, all the way to Guatemala. Does the heartland theory now allow for the land southward to be in the Mexican area? Yes or no?
It has to do with the dating of when things were actually, like for example, you have the Louisiana Purchase, you have the Mexican Territories Purchase, you have the Northwest Territories Purchase. All of those were done after, that time frame of Joseph Smith. The reason why I brought up the whole thing about, do you think that the Lord understands what the United States would ultimately become? Now, does that mean it's going to forever change there? I don't know. But it has been the 50 states now for over 100 and something years, right? I mean, it hasn't changed dramatically. I think the Lord knew what it was going to be like. But this is the ultimate thing, and that is that if the promised land of Adam and Eve was Canaan, how far did that extend? We don't have any idea, but we know it was in the heartland of America. We know that the gospel is restored basically in the heartland of America. We know that the New Jerusalem is going to be in the heartland of America. This has been a sacred place forever. That has not been the case with Guatemala or southern Mexico or Canada or any other state, or any other nation state, I should say, okay? So the reason why we talk about the United States being the promised land is because of this covenant that God made with Adam and Eve. He reestablished the covenant with the Jaredites. He reestablished the covenant with the Nephites. He reestablished the covenant again with George Washington on the day of his inauguration. So as the heartland of America, because we don't really think about California, for example, or really the northwestern part, we talk primarily about the heartland of America. So if the United States were to expand into Canada and expand into Mexico and so forth, it's still the heartland. It's that core area that we're talking about is the primary nation, and that also, we talked about the nation above all of the nations, the mighty Gentile nation that's being talked about, and there's 36 prophecies about that nation, and the only nation in the Americas that can qualify for all 36 of those prophecies in the Book of Mormon is the United States. That's why we talk about that.
All right, awesome.
So
okay.
that's a no.
Yeah, so the answer would be, even if America expands, that core area remains.
Okay.
It's the core area that counts. It doesn't matter if the United States takes over Guam. I mean, we already have, right? So,
I, for one, am for dual citizenship. I'm a half Mezzo and a half Heartlander, and outreach through diplomacy to Canada in hopes that they can become part of our model. So I'm a huge fan of all three.
If Canada is annexed, does that mean Brad can become president like he wanted to as a child?
yeah, I would vote for him.
Hey, and here's a thought. On our channel, what have I often called Brad? People that watch the show, what has he been called?
Future apostle.
Apostle 2024, right? He doesn't like it, but so we've stopped doing it, but we used to call him Apostle 2024. It just occurred to me, Brad, you can't be president of the United States of the church, but you could be United States of America, but you could be president of the church, bro. Dog, shake his hand now. You heard it here first. I am not even saying Apostle 2024. I'm going for prophet. You already played King Mosiah. Now you're going to be a dude. It's going down. It's going down. I'm just kidding. So, all right, guys, everybody, that's a wrap. This has been a ton of fun. First things first, huge round of applause for Rod Meldrum. Huge round of applause for Luke Hansen. Keep it going for Brad Whitbeck and Kwaku L, co-host of my show. Fidget the Crazy, Ethan. Brill Hernandez from the Firm Foundation. All of our tech crew. Aldo, say hi. He's our sound guy, making sure everything's working. We got Luis Castro's friends here. This has been great. It's been real and it's been fun. It's been real fun. We'll see you guys in the next program. Go on.